And we're back in the car. This is the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. Won't be a numbered episode. If you're joining me today on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, and are enjoying the content, don't forget to click like, subscribe, comment, turn on those notifications. If you're catching up with this non-numbered episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same rule applies. If you're enjoying the content, click like, subscribe, turn on those notifications. So yesterday was the 99th anniversary of when the two-time Oscar winner and one of the most respected people to work in the movie business, Jack Lemmon, who amazingly has been gone for almost 23 years. He was only 76 when he died and had been in poor health for some time. But I always thought that he was older than he actually was. And out of context, if you had said, how old do you think Jack Lemmon was when he died? I would have thought he was in his 80s. It didn't click. So the last movie that Jack Lemmon made was Legend of Bagger Vance, where he played, he's the narrator, but I think he's supposed to be the little kid at the beginning of the movie. And the movie is good. If you're a fan of golf, it's great. Strong performances. Charlize Theron's terrific. And Matt Damon, I like what he does with the character. Will Smith is funny. And some of the other actors in supporting roles, I think Joel Gretsch and Bruce McGill, really good. That's a guy that's always good, Bruce McGill. If you don't know the name offhand, Google him. You know, people get mixed up between Bruce McGill and Everett McGill. I'm pretty sure I've got the right McGill in this case. But yes, Jack Lemmon, yesterday would have been his 99th birthday. And he's most famous, other than the fact that he won 2 Oscars, one for supporting Mr. Roberts in 1953 with the extraordinary Henry Fonda and William Powell and James Cagney. Man, what a fucking cast that was, right? But he's also, I would say, most famous for his long-term partnership with another all-timer, Walter Matthau. And from the filmmaking perspective, he made 7 movies with Billy Wilder, a filmmaker that I've always been a huge fan of. And if some of you know the filmmaker Cameron Crowe, who did, among others, Jerry Maguire and Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise, almost famous. Cameron Crowe is one of the biggest Billy Wilder fans. Billy Wilder was an incredible filmmaker. He did Some Like It Hot and The Apartment with Jack Lemmon, just to give you probably their 2 most famous films. He also did The Fortune Cookie with Lemmon and Matthau, which is fucking riot. Billy Wilder, though, is somebody that I know, and Sunset Boulevard was also him. The Major and the Minor, which was an incredible performance by Ginger Rogers. Holy shit. My favorite Billy Wilder film is not one that he did with Jack Lemmon. It's a film that he did with William Holden and Peter Graves, among others. Stalag 17, which I would argue might be the best World War II film that's not a combat film. It is a film that, as my old friend, great kickboxer Derek Panza, when we used to argue movies all the time at Bev's Gym, man, that was fun. But we used to talk about, and this is something that you don't always think of in terms of war movies, we would talk about war movie as a combat film or war movie as a war atmosphere or set during wartime, but not strictly speaking a combat film. And Stalag 17 is a wartime film that is not a combat film. And it's kind of like The Great Escape. Well, more than kind of, it is like The Great Escape and Bridge on the River Kwai. But Stalag 17 to me is almost perfect. And William Holden, who was also in Bridge on the River Kwai, he is phenomenal in Stalag 17. I would argue that it's the best performance of his career. He's that good in that movie. And he got a lot of acclaim. May have even won the Best Actor Oscar for it. Sefton, I think he did, now that I'm pondering it. But so Billy Wilder is somebody I have a huge amount of respect for. And I'm not the biggest fan of Some Like It Hot. It's okay. I feel like it's very dated. You know, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon in drag, Marilyn Monroe looking great, the whole thing. Yeah. Well, nobody's perfect. Joey Brown's immortal line to close the film. Jack Lemmon won 2 Oscars. As I said, the first was for supporting for Mr. Roberts, it is a dated film, but James Cagney's line readings are so incredible. Cagney was old school with his line readings. And just the way that he says the name Pulver. Jack Lemmon plays opportunistic character, shipman, naval seaman, named Ensign Pulver. And just to hear James Cagney say, Pulver, 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 it's worth the price of admission. Just to hear the way he, Pulver, Pulver, Pulver. Whole movie keeps, Pulver. Jack Lemmon won the Best Actor Oscar for a movie that I have never seen, horror of horrors, called Save the Tiger. I think that was the 1973. I think that was 73. So it was not the year of Art Carney winning for The Late Shift. Hold on. But yeah, I never saw Save the Tiger. Was never really that interested. My first experience as a younger person watching a Jack Lemmon film, again, you're a Gen Xer, you watch what's on TV. You don't have the options like today. Like literally, I could go home and I could watch Save the Tiger on any number of streaming services, even if I have to pay a couple of bucks. You didn't have choices like that as a kid. So the first Jack Lemmon film that I saw was The Fortune Cookie, which my father, a million years ago, like in 1985, rented from South Shore Video. And it was my first Walter Matthau film, and my first Jack Lemmon film, and my first Billy Wilder film too. And I thought the movie was fantastic. I didn't know where that story was going. I had no idea that it was going to be about, a football player faking an injury, to try to collect a settlement. And the movie just doesn't do anything like what my 11-year-old brain thought it was going to do. And I thought it was absolutely hysterically funny. And another movie of his that got some acclaim at the time, again, I didn't know this when I was 12, but looking back on it and seeing it, was a film he did with Blake Edwards, who directed him decades earlier in Days of Wine and Roses, which I do want to talk about also, but called That's Life. And I saw a movie, it was with Julie Andrews, who plays Jack Lemmon's wife in the film. And he plays a guy who is turning 60 and is kind of coming to grips with his own mortality, that he doesn't feel well. And it's not because anything in particular is wrong, it's just that he's turning 60. And that's something that watching the movie as a 12 or a 13-year-old boy did not mean anything to me. But as somebody who recently had a big birthday, not 60, but 10 years before that, it resonates. It resonates. And what Lemmon was able to do there was balance comedy and drama. And there were people, if you Google, that thought he should have gotten a Best Actor nomination for that film. But the movie didn't really do that well at the box office. It didn't get great reviews. And it kind of now is considered a little bit of a curiosity. Oh, with Julie Andrews. But Lemmon started as a light comic and doing comedic things. And Mr. Roberts, although it has dramatic moments, he is really funny in that movie. And he was so young. He's like 25, 26. And I would argue that he even looked younger than that. He looks like a little kid. He did this film. Now, The Apartment, which is one of the most critically acclaimed films, and one of my friends just mentioned he thought it was, that's literally one of the greatest movies ever made. I think it's very, very strong, but it would never have occurred to me to put it on that exalted perch. I like The Apartment, the comedy drama elements, and Shirley MacLaine is a home run hitter. We all know that. Warren Beatty's, sister, the whole thing. She's fucking great. And I like the balancing of the comedic, and Fred McMurray, known as the cheapest man in Hollywood. Terrific performances. I like the movie a lot. I don't love it. Again, that's what makes a horse race. It's not one of my favorites. I saw Days of Wine and Roses when I was still a teenager. Excuse me. And I was blown away. Because what Lemmon did in that movie, still a young man, still in his mid-30s, I thought was incredible. Because that movie, which is a film about alcoholism, and I know that Billy Wilder did another movie, again, but it wasn't Billy Wilder, it was Blake Edwards that directed Days of Wine and Roses. But Billy Wilder, the first mainstream Hollywood film, as far as I know, with Ray Milland called The Lost Weekend was at the time groundbreaking. That they were actually in 1945 go into this part of life in a Hollywood production and just go for broke. And Days of Wine and Roses is early 60s, and it starts off with what you think is going to be a light comedy and then gets darker and darker. So the movie, it's not just that it gets dark, it's that it feels real. It doesn't feel, it feels like you're watching two alcoholics struggle and despair. And Lemmon's ability to switch, even within the same role, from light to dark, from comedy to pathos, to the depths of wondering if this is it. Is there any recovery? Is life going to get any better? All of that. Does it so beautifully. Does it so beautifully. And when you think of major actors, and I talked about this with regards to Paul Newman, Gene Hackman, but when actors who have had enormous success and are very well respected age, and they kind of age out of certain roles in many cases, and in other cases they try to keep playing the same kinds of parts for as long as possible. Nothing wrong with that. But when it's almost too much, and you have to acknowledge, as we say with Paul Newman, where he started having to play age-appropriate type characters, and you know, Clint Eastwood in Space Cowboys his character having an age-appropriate wife. After That's Life, the next movie of Lemmon's that I want to talk about is a film he did with Ted Danson, which was not really that good. But I believe it was written and directed by the fantastic Family Ties showrunner. You more or less discovered Michael J. Fox, if you want to put it that way. And Ted Danson plays the son of Jack Lemmon's character, and I believe Olympia Dukakis is the mom. And the way the movie, it's not very good, but Lemmon is incredible because he's actually playing older. He's playing a guy who is at least 10 years older than Jack Lemmon was in real life at the time. Jack was like 62 or 63 when that movie was shot, and he's supposed to be playing a guy who's probably closer to 80. And again, the strength of the performance is that Olympia Dukakis' character is pretty much, she's the dominant one in the marriage. And Lemmon deliberately comes across as pretty much helpless and feeble, that she has to do everything for him, that he can't take care of himself. That's not really true. It's simply that she has enfeebled him and he is perfectly capable of doing more. She just started doing everything. And when she encounters ill health, the expectation is Dad, Lemmon's character, where we're just going to have to put him in a nursing home. And it turns out that, no, you don't. He's quite capable on his own. He just hasn't had to do it because his wife did everything for him. And it's one of those movies that the late great film critics Siskel and Ebert, and more so Ebert in this regard, where sometimes they would really like a performance, but they didn't like the movie. And then the joke was, you know, I recommend the performances, but thumbs down for the movie. And then one or the other would say, well, how are they going to see the movie if we tell them not to see the movie? How are they going to see the performance if they don't see the movie? Dad is not a good movie, but Jack Lemmon is great in that movie. And I've seen it a few times, and I marvel at what he's able to do with that character. The way that he rallies, and that we see the kind of old spark of the younger Jack Lemmon, the twinkle in the eye that he was noted for, you know, as a younger actor. Now, he was in Oliver Stone's JFK. He has some really, really amazing scenes with Ed Asner, of all people. And it's a small role, but he registers, because Jack Lemmon always registers. He's one of those people, one of those rare people with the kind of screen presence where he can dominate just by standing up there, just by him standing there. And he was in the 1992 adaptation of David Mamet's, many people consider his finest play, Glengarry Glen Ross. I don't think it's a great movie. It's an incredible stage play. I've read the play. People remember the movie mostly for Alec Baldwin's, 7 minutes where he just walks in and just cleans up. I mean, just cleans up. That's, if you've heard the phrase, put that coffee down. It's Alec Baldwin addressing Jack Lemmon's character. You call yourself a salesman, you son of a bitch? Your name's Levine. Lemmon, again, finds humanity in a flawed character. And I believe he, even in that movie, was playing slightly older than he was in real life. I think his character is probably supposed to be in his early 70s and still out there grinding, still busting his tail trying to make a buck, by hook or by crook, by legal means or by underhanded means. He's out there doing it. It's a wonderful performance. Really the whole cast, Alan Arkin, Ed Harris, even Kevin Spacey, and Al Pacino, who was actually nominated for supporting actor. I forgot about Al Pacino. He plays Ricky Roma. And Jonathan Pryce, another terrific performer, is in the cast. And Pacino ended up winning the Oscar for Best Actor, Scent of a Woman, and he was nominated. So double nomination, which Holly Hunter would have the following year, where she won Oscar for the piano in lead, as Al won for Scent of a Woman in lead, but she didn't win for supporting in The Firm, and Al didn't win for supporting for Glengarry Glen Ross. But I don't think the movie is phenomenal. It's good. It's worth seeing just for Alec Baldwin, whether you love him or hate him. If you hate him, even better. He just cleans up. It isn't only they put that coffee down, it's the way that he dominates that scene. It doesn't even look like he's putting in any effort. He's just giving it what he's got. And the way that he just cuts them down. You call yourself a salesman, you son of a... That's such a great line. You call yourself a salesman, you son of a bitch. You see this watch? This watch costs more than your car. I'm here on a mission of mercy. Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the movies that Jack made with Walter Matthau, specifically in the 90s. He did the 2 Grumpy Old Men movies. Second one, not good. It's a retread. It's the first movie all over again. The first movie is very solid. Anne Margaret, wonderful. Kind of playing a woman who, I remember Roger Ebert, again, in his review, he said, basically, Anne's hot enough where she could be dating a guy in his 30s. She doesn't have to go for these old folk. He said he was kind of joking, but he kind of was not joking. But the Grumpy Old Men movies work. The chemistry between Lemmon and Matthau is so potent. And it's almost as if they build a history of these two characters without saying that much, but because it's them. The gaps get filled in a glance, a look, a dick joke, if you will. It'll be a hold up and not a stick up, one of those. Like, there's so many dick jokes in that movie. And, and this was the years before Viagra. The first Grumpy Old Men movie, wonderful. Burgess Meredith, the late, who played Mickey Goldmill in the Rocky movies, plays the father of Jack Lemmon's character. And Burgess, I believe, he was probably pushing 90 at the time. He was playing a character I think was supposed to be even older than that. They did a redo of The Odd Couple 2, and Neil Simon came back. It bombed. People weren't interested. The movie wasn't that good. It wasn't really that funny. And the last kind of high-profile movie that they made together is a film called Out to Sea, with a hysterical Elaine Stritch. Elaine Stritch was like a legendary Broadway, musical performer, and my aunt knew her. She said that the woman was crocked. My aunt used to work in a restaurant. I forgot the name of it, kind of fancy restaurant in Manhattan, and Elaine Stritch would come in after the rehearsals, after the shows, and my aunt said she was never not crocked. And it was just unbelievable that she was able to be in those shows, as she was always at best tipsy and other times totally inappropriate and out of control. And Diane Cannon, Cary Grant fame, that the daughter, Cary Grant's one daughter, Jennifer, was with Diane Cannon. Diane Cannon and Elaine Stritch, I believe, play mother and daughter in that film. And Jack and Walter Matthau play guys who I want to say they stow away on the ship and they pretend to be dance instructors, as weird as that is. And the tagline, instead of "Let's get ready to rumble," the tagline was "Let's get ready to rumba," like the dance. And that movie I really enjoyed. I like that better than Odd Couple 2 or Grumpy Old Men 2, but in all of them, you can see Lemmon trying to enhance the material. And one other thing in the 90s that Lemmon did, which was memorable, was that he appeared in a remake. It wasn't really a reboot, it was a remake of 12 Angry Men. Just watch the original. So it was a waste. There was no reason to make that movie, but when Ving Rhames won a Golden Globe that year, I believe it was for the Don King film Only in America, but I could be wrong, Ving became overcome with emotion, and he asked Jack Lemmon to come on stage. And Jack Lemmon, I feel like this was unrehearsed. There's so much of Hollywood and the glitz, and it's all bullshit, but this moment was so weird, it felt like it was real. This was not rehearsed. That this was Ving Rhames having a moment where he couldn't believe what was going on, that he won, and he wanted to share the award with, I believe he said that Jack Lemmon was his hero, his acting hero. And Lemmon came on stage and just didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to say. And it felt real. It didn't feel like either of them was acting, that they were having genuine reactions in the moment. And it's quite lovely, as they say, quite lovely. And the last movie that Jack Lemmon made, unfortunately, because his health really went downhill, was Legend of Bagger Vance, which is an interesting film. It's not entirely successful, but Will Smith is good, and Matt Damon's character does have an arc, and his relationship with Charlize Theron, it's very bizarre, but it kind of works. And what I like about the film is it's about athletic contest, in this case golf, a major PGA event, not the Masters or the PGA, but in that ballpark. And you have real historical figures represented, like Bobby Jones, the famous golfer, and Walter Hagen, another famous golfer, even has his own clothing line, even though it's not really him, it's presumably his family. What I like about the movie, and Lemmon didn't presumably have anything to do with this, is that the three golfers, Hagen and Bobby Jones, the two real figures, and then Matt Damon's character, Ranulph Juno, who is not a real person. I don't even know that he was necessarily based on anybody who was a real person. But once they get far enough into this tournament, it's like the guys almost are coming across as if they don't care who wins. They just care about the sportsmanship and the competition in the best sense. And maybe that's a cliche and it's old school, but the fact that, yes, they're out to win, but they're out to do it the right way, and the sense of camaraderie among the three guys, and especially the way that Bruce McGill plays Walter Hagen. Because the real Walter Hagen was a real incredible character. Like, I read about Walter Hagen before seeing this movie or really knowing that much about golf. He's one of the few names in golf I actually studied. And the movie does justice to the legend of Walter Hagen, so to speak. But it also does justice to this story of a returning World War I veteran who was broken by war and trying to put his life back together. And every time Jack Lemmon is on screen, you can't help but smile because it's him. And we didn't know that he was going to pass, but he died not long after he finished shooting his scenes for that movie. And so there will always be a kind of sadness in that, but there has to be a last role for the greats, for anybody, but the greats in particular. You think of Humphrey Bogart, his last movie, The Harder They Fall, very solid movie, loosely based on the famous, mostly phony heavyweight champion Primo Carnera, who was a huge man he was pretty much a paper tiger. He was a created, fabricated champion who ended up being a decent fighter, but he had no business winning the heavyweight championship of the world. And the movie kind of goes into that. and has real life historical figures to add authenticity. Jersey Joe Walcott doesn't play himself, but he plays a former fighter and now a trainer. And Bogart plays a journalist in that movie, and it's hard to say it's a fitting swan song, but it was Bogart's last movie. And Legend of Bagger Vance, to see the twinkle in Jack Lemmon's eye one final time, to have a few moments where the audience laughs with him, it's not the worst way to end it. You know, with young actors at the time, like Charlize Theron, like Matt Damon, and like Will Smith, knowing that he was in that movie with them. And it's, like I said, I don't really know why I haven't written about or talked about Jack Lemmon until now. He was one of my father's favorites. There's so many of his movies that he loved, you know, the original Out of Towners and even films like that. But he is someone whose cinematic life is worth remembering. And I hope in this Jack Lemmon episode, I have done justice to a great career. A guy that by all accounts was a terrific dude. Like, it's a really nice guy. There's very little on record of people dragging him or talking about him being an asshole or Jack Lemmon sucked or he was tough to work with. It's mostly he was a good dude, you know? And as I say, I hope I maybe shed a little bit of light into his career and his performance style and his capacity to move from comedy to drama and back again at the blink of an eye, drop of a hat, as the story called for it. And yeah, if you end up checking out the Jack Lemmon episode on the YouTube channel and you enjoyed it and haven't yet clicked like and subscribe, please do so. Or if you listen to this particular episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same rule applies. If you enjoyed the content, click like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with the actual episode 82, or it could be 83. I'll have to check on that. They go fast and furious. I haven't done an episode on the Fast and Furious series, and I won't. I haven't seen any of the movies. But I'll be back with episode 83 real soon. I hope you've enjoyed the Jack Lemmon retrospective. Peace.